Hi everyone, in this video we are going to talk about ethical hacking. So here goes the agenda. First we'll see the types of hackers, ethical hacking and the definition, impacts and risks, target applications, then how do applications become insecure. We'll see few industry standards which are followed by different organizations, then top vulnerabilities for different applications, domains, etc. and then finally the precautions. Talking about types of hackers, in broad scenario there are two types. One is white hat, that is good hackers or ethical hackers, and second type is black hat, which are bad hackers. So white hat hackers are the ethical hackers who work for an organization or do freelancing to help protect the assets of various organizations from different security threats or vulnerabilities. Whereas black hat hackers are the bad hackers who act on their own and they do hacking for their own benefit or to harm any organization or any individual. Coming to ethical hacking definition. So ethical hacking is a term in which any individual or group of people or researcher who are doing research or vulnerability assessment, or it is also called penetration testing, to help protect the security or the security posture of any assets of organization and or company. So these kind of group of people are called ethical hackers, and the process is called ethical hacking. So there are few rules for ethical hacking. First rule is the ethical hacker or security researcher should have the permission to perform the vulnerability assessment on the assets of the organization. Second rule is respect the individual or company's privacy. So during the ethical hacking process, if a researcher or ethical hacker finds out some private data or some sensitive data of the company or individual, they should respect that. They should not disclose it to the public and keep it secret and inform the company or individual about it so that they can take corrective measures. Coming to the third rule, close out the work. So during the course of any ethical hacking activities, if a researcher or ethical hacker creates some users or credentials or some resources in a organization application or target application, after after the end of the work or research, they should close all their test accounts or test resources, because if they keep those open, later in some time an actual hacker may exploit those. So they have to, any security researcher or ethical hackers have to close out their works after the test is completed. And the last rule is, if any vulnerability is found which is new in any software or hardware or any kind of assets, the security researcher must inform the stakeholders or the owners as soon as it is identified. They should not keep any found vulnerabilities secret to themselves. So coming to the risks or impacts, if any application or asset or any organization is vulnerable to attacks, so the company or organization lose the brand name. And also, if suppose for example, if an application of a company or organization is found to be vulnerable for multiple vulnerabilities or attacks, so the customers or the clients lose the confidence on the company or the product or the brand. Coming to the cost, so after any application is put to production or live, if any vulnerabilities are identified or if any real attack happens in that application, so the cost of downtime, in the sense to fix the vulnerability or to mitigate the attack, the organization or the development team has to bring down the application and then fix it and then again put it into production. So in this scenario, the downtime costs a huge amount of money to the organization. Coming to the vulnerability remediation cost, so once a vulnerability is identified, so based on the severity, so severity is the like how severe is the vulnerability or attack, so it can be high, critical, low or medium. So based on the severity, the vulnerability remediation cost will be higher. So this is also a risk or impact. If the vulnerabilities are not fixed in the early stage of the development, later on production it will cost them more. Coming to lawsuits, so if any vulnerable application which has lot of client data or actual sensitive data of users, clients or other organizations, so if those are leaked, so the organization who owns the vulnerable application can also be subjected to lawsuit by the victims. And an appropriate security testing or ethical hacking or vulnerability assessment or penetration testing, whatever you call it, it reduces all these kind of risks. Coming to the targets, first one is all kind of web applications. So in under web application there are multiple domains like healthcare, banking and finance, then social media, and all other any kind of private or personal websites. So any kind of web applications can be a target to the hackers. Coming to the mobile apps, so nowadays we see all the applications have mobile version or mobile apps. So people are using mobiles on the go, and all the applications are available for mobile, and with that comes the different threats to the mobile apps as well, and it can be a target to the hackers. Coming to the next topic or next category, it is desktop applications or thick client applications. So desktop applications, for example, like any Microsoft Office suite, or any gaming client like Steam, or any other like Uplay, and then other applications like Adobe softwares which are not hosted on the web or server, but they reside on the client side or the desktop or laptop computer, and whenever needed it syncs that user data or whatever work the user is using, it syncs with the server. So such kind of applications are also subjected to the targets of hackers. Then comes to web services or REST API calls, they are also a target to hackers. Then network, so we know that network is the backbone of all the applications which are hosted. So if a network is attacked or compromised, all the applications or assets present in the network are also compromised to the hacker. So this is also a hot target for the attackers. Coming to IoT of Internet of Things, so nowadays people are using IoT devices like healthcare bands, and then Fitbit bands, or any other such devices like to monitor the heart rate, then monitoring BP, all kind of also healthcare devices. So these bands can also be hacked because they also use the they are connected to internets, and then attackers can hack those things, and if it is hacked then it is life critical or like threatening situation. So IoT is also a target for hackers. Then next coming to that is healthcare devices present in different hospitals. So if you see all the healthcare devices run scans and reports, and those are connected to the hospital's network to send the reports to the doctor and other healthcare associates. In such scenarios, if an attacker can hack into those devices, they can tamper with the test results. They can also change the different readings or injection or medicine amount. So that is also a life threatening thing. So even healthcare devices are target for hackers. Then coming to the next is ATM. So there are cases in which attackers or hackers were successfully able to take out money from ATMs by installing some malwares or something like that. So ATM is also a target where actual real money comes out. Then comes Wi-Fi and hardware. So in Wi-Fi and hardware also are the targets to hackers, because if we see that in like public places like airports and cafes there are Wi-Fi. So if an attacker is able to sniff into those Wi-Fi communication, they can get into different users who are connected to the Wi-Fi. And if some attacker is able to hack into some cheap or hardware level of vulnerabilities, that is also a hot target. Then next is how do applications become insecure. So first one is weak design and architecture. So as we know, any application development, first of all it happens with requirement gathering, design, functionalities, and then the architects and developers sit together, make the design and architecture. So if the design itself and architecture itself has lot of weakness or vulnerabilities, then it will lead to a actual attack or threat in the production or when the application is developed and deployed. Then comes second phase, that is insecure coding. So after design and architecture, actually the coding starts by the developers. So most of the vulnerabilities are related to insecure coding, because the way the application is developed, if the code itself is vulnerable, like not securely coded, then it will lead to the different kind of vulnerabilities when the application is deployed or in live. We'll see that in next slides. Then coming to the deployment and configuration. So after the coding is done and application is ready, so the application has to be deployed and put into live so that anyone can access from anywhere, right? So in this scenario also, during deployment and configuration, if it is weakly configured or there are some misconfigurations in the settings or configuration files, due to that also some vulnerabilities may occur. And next is use of vulnerable or outdated components. So for like features, different features incorporating multiple functionalities from various vendors, so nowadays third party libraries or third party components are being widely used by application developers. So for example, suppose one application is using 3 or 4 or multiple third party components from different vendors, where the code modification is not allowed by the developer. They are just using the provided functionality of the code or library or DLL, something like that. In such scenarios, if the third party component which is being used, if that is vulnerable inherently, so it will also make the actual application vulnerable. So use of any outdated or already known vulnerable components in your application will also make your application vulnerable, and attackers can easily find out the known vulnerabilities and target your application for those. So it is always recommended that do not use any outdated or already known vulnerable components in your application. Then coming to backdoors, so this is like insider threats. So sometimes what happens is there may be some bad actors inside the organization itself. While developing, they keep some backdoor, like some special credentials or some bypassing the authentication or something like that, so that later they can, when the application is put into production or it is in live, they can directly have access to that application even after they leave the organization. So such kind of intentional vulnerable component or vulnerable module is called a backdoor. Then last one is lack of awareness. So this is the one thing which is not exactly directly creating a vulnerability, but if the developer or an architect or whoever is designing the application, whoever is deploying the application, if they are unaware of the different security concepts and vulnerabilities and secure coding practices, then ultimately they will lead to developing a vulnerable application. So in application security domain, spreading awareness about the different kind of threats, attacks and vulnerabilities is really necessary. Now we'll see few industry standards which are widely used by different organizations across world. So first one is OWASP, which is Open Web Application Security Project. So you can just go to owasp.org and you can see different projects are there. It is like an open consortium who will keep all the different vulnerabilities and guidelines for different various domains, applications like mobile application, web application, IoT. Then whatever we discussed, what kind the targets are there, for everything they have different top vulnerabilities and test cases and cheat sheets. So this is a very really good resource to go through. Then similarly, Web Application Security Consortium and SANS have also different top vulnerabilities. They publish those vulnerabilities and the remediation technique. Then below 3 you can see PADSS, PCI DSS and HIPAA. So these are different compliances. So PCI DSS is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, and HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So PCI DSS has whenever any application is using any card transactions in the application, that time PCI DSS has multiple compliances to follow to secure the application to and the sensitivity of user data, etc. Similarly, HIPAA comes to the Health Insurance Portability Act, so in which talks about the different healthcare applications have to follow those compliance policies. Coming to top vulnerabilities, so here I am trying to cover like all the critical vulnerabilities. So if you go to OWASP and other vulnerabilities present in those consortiums or those groups, you will see they will publish every year different vulnerabilities which are top. But here I am talking about the most critical vulnerabilities identified by the hacker or security researchers. So first one is injection. So what is injection? When any application is taking any user input or user control input, for example form data or any file or anything. Okay, so in this scenario, if the application is not properly validating the user input what is intended, and it is executing the code, so in such scenarios code execution or any malicious activities can happen from the supplied data from the user or any malicious actor. So such vulnerabilities are called injection. So there are multiple different type based on the underlying technologies. For example, if an attacker is sending some SQL statement and which is malicious, and that is going to the server side and being executed, and something happening in the database server, the execution of the SQL statement which is given by the hacker, then it is called SQL injection. Similarly, if one attacker is able to send some XML related malicious payload is nothing but the data which is being sent which is malicious. So if an attacker is sending some XML related data or payload, malicious payload which get executed by the XML processor on the server side, and then some bad thing happens in the application, some extra data may be fetched, sensitive data may be fetched from the server, or sometimes code execution may happen. So this is called XML injection. Similarly, if you go to the OWASP top 10, you will see all different kind of injection attacks there. So there are command injection, then XPath injection, code injection. So there are multiple injection attacks, there HTML injection and all. So you can do a research on that, and we will talk about those different vulnerabilities in action on live when in the upcoming videos. Okay, so then comes the authentication, authorization and session management related vulnerabilities. So you know about authentication, right? When you give username and password and login, so that process is called authentication. And authorization is the roles or privileges you have when you log into any application. What are the different functionalities you can do on that application, that is called your authorization. So, and session management is when you log in, so your identity will be kept as a session ID token, etc. So in all these three aspects, the attackers will try to bypass authentication or authorization and do some abuse in the session management schema. So these are also top vulnerabilities. Then coming to the third one, that is XSS, which is nothing but the cross-site scripting. This is also an injection attack in which the attacker will send the JavaScript payloads. So it happens in the client browser, executes in the browser. So there are multiple kind of XSS like stored XSS, reflected XSS, DOM XSS. So those will talk about demonstration in the next future videos, but just remember XSS is also a top vulnerability, which is nothing but a JavaScript injection in which attacker sends JavaScript payload to the application which get executed on the client or end user's browser. So this is called XSS. Then next is security misconfiguration. So as we already discussed, like all the applications when they are deployed or put into live, so they should have or they must have some configuration on the server side, right? So for example, .NET applications have web.config files, Java applications have web.xml files. Okay, and also Java like Spring framework has spring.xml and some kind of configuration file, app.config, web.config, spring xml, then web.xml. so many configuration files and also properties files can be there for the application to run properly, or some environment variable to be stored in that. So in these configuration files there can be some security configuration provided or available from the framework itself, for example .NET framework or Java framework. Okay, so while deploying, if the developer or DevOps engineer, whoever is deploying the application, if they are unknowingly doing some misconfiguration, like they are turning off some security features from provided by the platform, this also leads to some vulnerabilities. So this comes under security misconfiguration. For example, debugging is set to enable true, so in the test environment, so whenever testing purpose, even though the application is not live in the developer's test machine, so they can do the debug equal to true, and for any, it will help in the debugging of the application, running the application and finding out what errors are there in the code. Okay, But if while deploying, if the debugging is not set to false in the production, what happens, if any error occurs in the live application, it may throw all the server side error messages to the end users. So the end user may become a hacker, or the end user may be a hacker or malicious actor who get more details from the error messages, something like that, or debug messages or stack traces, and they can find out some secret sensitive data as well. So these kind of security misconfiguration issues are also top vulnerabilities. Then next is sensitive data exposure. So data is key and it is money. So any application or organization will be having clients data or end users data. So if these kind of such data are exposed, so nowadays we can see in hackers, live hacks or attacks, sensitive data like public data is exposed, user data is exposed, millions of user records are exposed, sensitive like credentials, card details, etc. are exposed. So these things are called sensitive data exposure, and to prevent that, there should be proper mitigation of like encryption, hashing, and multiple concepts are there. Those also we'll discuss in like upcoming videos. So as of now, you just remember, any client or end users or the organizations also, if the any sensitive or secret data is exposed to any actor who are not intended to see those data, it is called sensitive data exposure. Next is CSRF, which full form is cross-site request forgery. So in this attack, what happens, an attacker tricks the victim or end user to perform some activities on the target application on behalf of the attacker. So this is called CSRF. So for example, I am an attacker. If I am an attacker and you are an end user or a victim user, I will force you, I will send you a form, or I will do something, I will send you a form, or I will make you visit my page, where there will be in the background of the page, there will be some hidden methods, hidden requests to the target server, which application you are logged in, which I want to attack. So what happens is, you are logged into the application and I make you visit my page when you are logged into the application in the same browser, and then my page will send request, hidden request to the application, target application, and whatever I want to do, it will be happening from your behalf or the victim user's behalf. So this is called cross-site request forgery, and it happens when the application is not validating the user's requests, whether it is really coming from the user who is requesting it. Okay, so how to prevent that we will discuss in upcoming videos. Then coming to the next one, non-vulnerable components. So what we already discussed few before in the previous slides. So what happens when you are using any third-party components in your application, any organization is using for some feature or some extra added functionalities, if that third-party component itself is vulnerable to multiple attacks, what happens is attackers will know about that and they will target your application, which will become inherently vulnerable because of usage of the non-vulnerable components. Okay, and then next is local data storage. So in few cases for mobile applications or even web applications, sometimes what happens is some sensitive data may be stored locally on the client's system. Okay, and if they are not properly protected, an attacker will be able to access those data, fetch those data, and get some sensitive information out of it. So this local data storage also related to that, if it is not stored properly or securely, it also can lead to some attacks to the attackers. Next we will discuss about the precautions. So I have categorized into two parts. One is user specific suggestions and another one is app owners or organization specific suggestions. So as you can see, user specific suggestion is whenever you are opening any browser or any application accessing through browser, or if you are opening any app on mobile, or you are downloading any app from the Play Store or App Store, you first identify the app's identity and digital certificate. So in browser you can do it after accessing the URL or endpoint. You can just click on the top certificate tab and see what certificate it is, who is authorizing the certificate, who is owning the certificate. If it is not from the intended application what you are accessing, then don't access that application and don't give any data in that, any details in that application. Okay, that may be a phishing site. Similarly in the app, so never use any rooted device to install anything, because rooted device can have like malwares in the app and it can monitor all your activities from your device. So always use security patches of your Android device or any iOS device or any handheld devices you are using. Always use genuine apps. Then as I mentioned, never use cracked apps. So even in Windows application or any application, utility application or any software you are using, never use the cracked app, because if and suppose cracked apps, how it works, it is tricking the application's binary to bypass the license, correct? So if suppose a person who is able to do that, the bypassing the license and the product key, they can also add their own chunk of code in the app, cracked app, to monitor on your machine or system or your online activities. They can install keylogger, so whenever you are accessing any banking site or giving your username password in any other application, that cracked app can fetch those details from your keystroke and can send to the attacker, and your system may be compromised, correct? And they can also install some virus or malware or some attacks like spyware attacks and any other like hashing or blocking your files, protecting your files or encrypting your files and then asking for your money. Okay, so this kind of attack is called ransomware attack. So be aware and never use cracked apps. Always use a good antivirus. So keep your antivirus updated regularly. Buy one good antivirus and keep it updated, so that any virus activities or any malicious activities, online activities, it can prevent. And then coming to the latest security updates for apps. So if you are, as I mentioned, always use genuine apps. So when you are using genuine apps, you get this feature of updating it to the latest security patches, right? So even for Windows or any other Windows OS or Windows applications or any other even mobile applications, you get every day frequent, you get security updates. So whenever anything is identified or the owner or the organization feels like there needs to be any security patches or updates necessary, they will push that and you can avail it from the app store without paying any extra cost. Okay, and then do not trust anyone blindly. So why this is a precaution is, suppose as we discussed about the top attacks, that is CSRF, right, in the previous slide, cross-site request forgery. In that what happens is, someone you know will send you a malicious page or invite you to a link, to visit a link, and when you visit that, you get attacked, right? So in that scenario, this precaution it is. So do not trust anyone blindly, and whenever you are doing any banking or any other sensitive transactions, use a separate browser and don't browse anything on that browser when you are active on that session of the application. Okay, then last one is update your knowledge base regularly. Attend some security conferences, meets, talk to people, and understand how your applications can be a threat, how your data can be compromised, etc. Get familiar with different kind of vulnerabilities and always keep up to date. Then next, the important suggestions for app owners or developers or any organization. Okay, so they have to perform security testing or vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, and all these things, okay, from the very beginning of the application development life cycle. So first one is design review, security design review. So whenever the application design is being made, they have to go through a security design review from their trusted security employees or application security analysts or researchers in their organization, internal researchers. So they can review the design and give the guidances, like how it should be, how securely the application should be designed, and how the architecture should be used, how the different components should be used, which components should be upgraded, which components should not be used. All these things can be discussed in the design review phase. Then comes the secure code review. So in code review part, while coding is performed, so the application security analysts have to be engaged. They will review the code and see if anything vulnerability present in the code which may lead to an actual attack in the live application. Next is vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So after code review, when coding is done, the application, the different modules, so you may ask, like, when already code review is done, why again vulnerability assessment, correct? So thing is, like, in real world the applications are huge and it will be having multiple modules separately developed, and they are integrated together in the last phase, okay, when deployment. So because of that, and sometimes few vulnerabilities may arise from functionalities and business logic also, which cannot be reviewed in secure code review. So all those kind of vulnerabilities should be identified in vulnerability assessment or penetration testing part phase. Okay, so in this phase the live application will be given to the researchers, and they will perform the assessment and find out different vulnerabilities in the live application and report back. Then comes to the dependency check. So we discussed about using third party components, right? So even in like live activities in assessment, so an security researcher can do a dependency analysis, whatever the different dependencies, third party libraries being used by the application. They can either run a scan on that using some tools like OWASP has OWASP dependency checker, and similarly many other corporate tools are there, proprietary tools are there. Using those, they can run a scan on the full project, find out what are the different dependencies or libraries being used by the application or project, and if anything is vulnerable, non-vulnerable components, the tool will result, and then they will suggest the developers to upgrade to the latest stable version, which is secure and doesn't have any security vulnerabilities. And also the development team has to keep patching up those third party components. Whenever any new patch or security update is available from the vendor, third party vendor, they have to push that and upgrade that and remove all the older version of the dependencies. Then comes to the DevSecOps. So this is a part in which DevOps we know, right? So DevOps engineers will be maintaining the code and pushing the code and continuous integration and continuous development, right? So in that scenario, when security is integrated in those, that is called DevSecOps. So whenever any code is managed or builds are done, or code pushing, pulling, all these things are done, the security measures taken in that process is part of the DevSecOps. So there are multiple tools. For example, I just give one example. Suppose by mistake a developer is pushing some credentials in the code base, okay, while making a push request. So in such scenarios, there are multiple tools available for different platforms. Those tools can identify if any secret or passwords are by mistake being pushed by the developer in the branch, and they can notify and stop the push. They will not allow the commit, okay, until and unless the secrets are removed from the code base. Similarly, other activities can also be performed. Security checks can be performed using tools in DevSecOps. And again, in this also, the last one is update your knowledge base regularly. So app owners or development community or any architect community, they should also participate in like security conferences, security knowledge sharing. They should know how different vulnerabilities are available, how threats are there, what are the different attack vectors in any application, so that they can also participate as a key role in the application security. Then this concludes this presentation. So I believe you have understood what is ethical hacking and what is a bad hacker. So there is a very thin line between ethical hackers and an actual bad hacker, black hat hacker. So always remember, whenever you are learning ethical hacking, you maintain the rules, keep ethical, don't do anything unethical, don't expose anything, or don't be something like, if you find something and suppose you are doing bug bounty, you have identified some vulnerability and reported it to the program, but they are not accepting it. In this scenario, do not get grudges and do not post those publicly on any social media, like I found this and they are not giving me money or bounty. This is not ethical, okay? So if you found, your role is to identify the vulnerability and responsibly submit it to the app owner or organization. Then you trust them. If they are accepting and providing you a bounty, that is good. If even though they are not providing, then move on and go and try secure other applications. And with this good note, I will end this presentation, and thank you. And please wait for other like videos I will be creating in upcoming days, where I'll be explaining different vulnerabilities, how to attack them in live application, as well as I will show code review and design review part, and wait for that. Yeah, thank you.